Zach, any oral communications?
None.
Okay, thank you. And we'll look over the minutes. Anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns?
Not sure that it matters, but on page 5 of the packet, which I believe is the second part of last meeting's minutes, the dates there, Thursday, October 12th.
Right there.
Oh, I see what happened. As part of the header, I'll make sure that's correct.
Okay.
And then since we're correcting it anyways, I kind of know
Sure.
it matters, but under page 4, I think it's supposed to, under present, and it's supposed to be LS and S.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Systems, maybe. Yeah. Library services. There.
With those two updates, do we have a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second.
Voting is open. If you guys want, you can try voting on your touchscreen. Motion approved. 5-0.
And then we'll move on to the second item, which is the Library Director Subcommittee discussion. John, would you like to take the lead on this?
Okay. Yes. Okay, so the very last page of our packet. I looked in the bylaws to see where this would fit, and all I could find that made any sense was powers and duties, section 5. And there's nothing like this in section 5, so this would be a new paragraph right to it. Sorry about that. Okay, so I looked through the bylaws to see if there was anything where we could just add this in, and there was not. So I went to powers and duties because this would be a duty. And that's section 5. I found nothing in section 5 that had anything to do with this, so this would be a new, this would be 5.7 right now. Section 5 ends at 5.6. And I tried not to get too flowery, like saying pursuant to Article F. But anyway, this is, I think, kind of plainly stated. So just, what do you guys think?
So is Reno known as the city librarian or the library director?
In the LS&S contract, he's known as the city librarian.
I think I go by both.
Okay.
technically.
Okay.
I think my official title is city librarian, but my working title is library director.
Okay, cool.
Right. So I stuck with the language that was in attachment A, so that it would be, you know,
Consistent.
consistent, yeah.
I like it. I have no problems with it.
For me, and sometimes it's better not to put too much verbiage so that we don't kind of tie ourselves into certain situations. But I'm not sure if we should consider what stage, right? So are we interviewing the proposed candidates that LS&S provides, or are we interviewing them before they become finalists?
I'm leaving this wide open. It could be a candidate that somebody else puts forth besides LS&S. The contract just says that LS&S and the city and the board must agree. And right now, we have a great relationship with LS&S. I think we're all in agreement that they do a good job running the library. But businesses can change, ownership can change, and their culture can change. So this leaves it open that we could handle this in any, no matter what happened, we could come up with our own candidate. They could provide one or two. It just leaves it open. I thought that was a better thing to do than to restrict it to, to candidates just from the city or just from LS&S.
So I don't have a solution to this, but one of my additional thoughts in trying to piece all of this together is the city or an LSNS can put forth their candidates, and ideally it is going to be plural, right? And so for me, it's more of what if a situation like this is repeated where they only present one candidate, right? So therefore we can only interview one.
Well, this leaves it open that the city could decide they don't like LS&S as candidate and go out and get one. And it leaves it open to where we could go out and solicit a candidate and interview it. All that's possible if you leave it broad. If you want to restrict it, you can do that, but we don't know what the future is going to bring us. I've seen, worked for Pacific Southwest Airlines, and we had contracts up the kazoo in 18 different stations, like maybe 20 contracts in each one, mostly service. And a company that can be just fantastic for 3 or 4 years can turn, it can go completely wrong if ownership changes. And I just think we ought to be, leave it flexible enough that we can respond to just about any situation.
I have a suggestion on how we could possibly alter the language to cover what you're suggesting and make it broad and clear. So in the second paragraph, in order to complete a thorough vetting of new city librarian candidates, the president and secretary of the Library Board of Trustees as a subcommittee will participate in the complete interview process and selection in private meetings and report their recommendation to the board during the Library Board of Trustees. Actually, the private meetings can be taken out because we want to be part of the entire interview process, and we could decide to hold our interviews privately.
Okay, so read.
So it'd be after subcommittee, it would be will participate in the complete interview process and report their recommendation to the board.
I kind of like that.
I think we should also provide a delegation clause, just saying, or provide delegation to the LS&S or city, as deemed appropriate by the board. Just because, if we're talking about our bylaws and being part of every single part of the process, it's quite a bit of time, I would assume. And then, in order to not have gaps in library director coverage for more time than necessary, I think adding 2 more people who, don't work full-time for LS&S or the city, and figuring out when they can meet and all that might delay the appointment.
So what wording are you thinking of, Carolyn?
I would say, I think you can just add, after we'll interview such candidates and report their recommendation, or we'll interview such candidates or provide delegation for interviewing to the city or LS&S. I think too, it might be, important to think about the other side of the coin as well, right? We're here thinking about LS&S and how they are changing. I think too, thinking about the board and how the board could change is important as well.
I agree, but we also got to think about how potentially the city could be changing. So you got 3 factors in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if one of the two people in the subcommittee can't find the time to fully participate, I would assume that it goes unspoken that the president could substitute someone else.
Or delegate their authority to the city or LSNS.
Yeah, I think we can add the president and secretary or delegate of the Library Board of Trustees.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Like that.
But where does that go? Right after
Library Board of Trustees.
or a delegate? And all the Broadcom contracts experience you have is coming out.
Revised a lot of bylaws.
Yeah. Okay, so then it would read, the president and the secretary of the Library Board of Trustees or a delegate, comma, as a subcommittee, comma, will participate in the complete interview process and report their recommendation to the board during a Library Board of Trustees meeting. And I didn't say scheduled meeting or whatever. It could be, or it could be a special meeting. It's just whatever floats our boat at the time to meet the schedule.
I like that.
You good with that? Okay.
I need a motion.
John, do you mind motioning in
Okay.
the actual language?
Okay. I motion that we add to Section 5, powers and duties of the bylaws, the following. Section 5.7. Article F, Section 4 of Attachment A of the contract between the City of Escondido and LSNS concerning the position of city librarian states, appointment of an individual to this position shall be subject to the approval of the library board and city manager and his/her designee. In order to complete a thorough vetting process of, it should say a new, no, it doesn't, of new city librarian candidates, the president and secretary of the Library Board of Trustees or a delegate as a subcommittee will will participate in the complete interview process and report their recommendation to the board during a Library Board of Trustees meeting. Good.
I second.
Voting is open. Motion approved, 5-0.
Had to hit it 5 times.
Thank you, John, for driving that very important change to cover our future. Okay, item number 3, statistics report.
All right, so pull that up. Statistic report. So we're looking at October. Overall, everything was looking about the same, trending about what I would expect. We saw an increase from September to October on circulation. Essentially everything else trending the way it had been trending, with linked plus items continuing more or less around the same, increasing on our end as far as patrons borrowing from other member libraries. We had slightly less service hours due to the holidays, so that did decrease our attendance and a little bit of the surge because there was less people coming in, but that's to be expected. You'll note a couple of red line items here in the stats. In October, there was some sort of technical failure on our Wi-Fi system, so there was no Wi-Fi sessions captured. But what likely ended up doing at the end of the year is putting in an average kind of placeholder for that, just so you know that in October we did have accurate stats. We'll have a little asterisk for that number. And then for the volunteers at the time of this report, I was still waiting on the stats from our literacy coordinator. So today I got them, but I didn't have time to feed them for the packet. So it's actually closer to the past months. We're in the 94 for the volunteers and in the 900 range for the hours. But this is just with library, non-included of literacy volunteers. So you get an idea of the split. Everything else is on trend, an increase in the number of live programs and attendance continues well, same with our outreach. Any questions as far as statistics for this past month, October's?
I had one question. It was initially based off of the dip that I saw in volunteer hours, but now you've clarified that. So I guess the question is more or less, do we have a way to recognize volunteers within the library?
Sure, we do. We used to have a volunteer coordinator. Now that role is kind of split between our customer service manager, Aspen, and the city's volunteer and outreach coordinator, Leticia. What usually happens is we have a yearly luncheon, and appreciation, like a dinner for all the volunteers. It's typically sometime in the summer is when it usually happens. I think last time we did it in May. And right now, say as a preview, we're working to transition our volunteer tracking system to something more electronic. Right now, believe it or not, it's still very much paper-based. And so that will give us the opportunity as new volunteers to come in to track milestones a little bit better than we currently do. So we can recognize, the first 100 hours, 1,000 hours, length of service with more ease. We do some of that already, but the new system will help us do that a little bit easier and less staff time for that.
I had a question on e-materials. First, I'm just looking at 3 months, but it looks like we're increasing every month. Is that just seasonal, or is this something? What's your take on it?
I think some of the stats definitely are more seasonal. As if you remember back, some of the visits and some of those are dipped following the summer, and now we're seeing a little bit of a return as I think some residents come in, visit. It kind of varies. There are certain things that I definitely noticed that are continuing to trend upwards. For example, our ebook or e-resources circulation seems to be trending steadily up without too much variance in season. Our Link Plus, as people learn more, I have been noticing that seems to be going up steadily as well as people learn about it and use it. What's a service that really lends itself to continued use? Once you've gotten the book you want from another library, you're going to go back and get some more. So I'm seeing that trend. Library visits, those are the ones that usually are more seasonal, just because when people can come into the library is really dependent on when they're here and when they're able to visit the library. So that tends to be school-related, work-related, less so, of course, for retiree populations, but even then they have some seasonal movements, not so much here in California, but visiting family members, etc. Other than that, is there any specific stat you were looking at?
No?
Questions? Okay, great, thank you, Rena. We'll move on to strategic plan update.
Right. So this one is our 4th goal statement, resilience. Just to remind everybody, this relates to the goal of Escondido Public Library will make the best use of resources by operating efficiently and will be a good neighbor and community member. Most of these goal timelines start in 2024, so this upcoming year. But we've done some progress. A lot of these are more of day-to-day programs that we can do, but I'll do highlight encourage healthy living and encourage wellness. These are 2 of the strategy areas that we've done a lot of movement already, starting in this year and the year prior, including very successful succulent swaps and gardening programs run by our Adult Services Department, as well as our Healthy You and Meditation Mindfulness series. We're still looking for even more programs by partnering with Palomar Health and also nearby colleges, thinking about trying to facilitate blood drives at the library, other uses of the spaces in that way. Partnership, of course, with some of our parks in San Diego County, natural and state resources. And yeah, overall, we're on trend for most of these. We were already doing a lot, including reselling and recycling needed materials, which continues to be a very, well, it's profitable, but also very supportive endeavor with the Friends of the Library. And let's see what else we have. Yeah, I think everything else is pretty good. We're on point. Most of it, again, is dedicated more in 24 and beyond, but already we're focusing on trying to figure out the best way of limiting waste. In my mind, reducing paper waste is something that's not yet listed here, but that's on my mind, especially at the library, trying to reduce form usage and make it as much and digital as we can, including the addition of, I hope, to add kiosks for card registration rather than having to do everything form-based at the library. We already have the online application for a partial library card, but you still have to come in and sign some forms currently, but we're still looking at ways of making that even more efficient as far as reducing paper. Any questions or comments about strategic planning goals?
This was before my time, but I believe earlier in the year, or maybe last year, there was a cleanup around the library in the surrounding neighborhood. Does that connect back to this goal, or is that separate?
I would consider that part of this goal, and I would be happy to facilitate another cleanup.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I would see that. I think that would actually go with the component of being a good neighbor and community member. So I think whenever we can, try to maximize any partnerships that we have within local businesses or nonprofits that may be within our area that can help leverage some of our efforts. I think that would be ideal. I know in terms of reducing waste, I have heard recently about, I see that you guys have like a succulent swap. I've never been able to make those, but I've been hearing about some similar concepts, especially for after the holidays, where it's like, maybe bring something that you were gifted or that you had that, you may not use, because we all get that stuff, and to be able to swap some of those items rather than trying to return those, because we know a lot of those returns end up in the landfill anyway, or just throwing them out completely. So I'm not sure if that, in the future, because I know after the holidays is probably a quick turnaround, but in the future, if that's something that we can implement. I think with a lot of, we can do a lot with this specific strategy, I think, in trying to bring in audiences to the library that aren't focused on the library. So for like the meditation and the mindfulness programs, I think also in the future, and Francis and I are part of the outreach subcommittee, so you can use us as well to kind of leverage and help you do outreach and connect you with whoever you need to. But I would love to see like a Zumba session at the library. I think that'd be super fun. Or maybe we change it up and it's just like we have the second Saturday of the concert series, but maybe we do a different type of dance every month. A similar program like that, so that we can get different audiences in. Just my thoughts. I know I throw a lot at you, Reno, every month.
No, those are all good ideas. I really like the idea of a gift swap. I think that's a nice way of kind of giving people an alternative to use. We've had a lot of people donate. We have now a cat drive, and then now we're doing Toys for Tots, and I keep seeing people bringing those stuff in. So there's definitely a community here that is willing to give and participate in those types of events. So I think offering something like a gift swap or like a after holidays similar type of event is not something I've really seen very much. I think it's a nice way of involving the community and inviting them in for that. And I think it's very doable. It's not difficult. It's just staff and tables.
Yeah. I have an idea too related to, I guess it would be related to any of this, reducing waste and transportation and everything. Do we partner at all with We did the program with In-N-Out where they read a certain amount
Yes.
of the meal. I'm wondering if, you know, we could add MTC to like, if you show your library card, you get 15% off. That would just, I think, you know, encourage people to read, but then also they get a benefit for taking the bus either to get to the library or just to go about the daily lives.
We don't currently, from what I know. I'm trying to think even if we have the bus schedules. In my mind, I can't say for sure whether we do or not. I know we can help them find them online. The idea of partnering with them, I think, would be great. It might have to do a little bit more work with the county to get that done. I know I researched, at least for staff, there is incentives for like employers to kind of chip in and provide discounts for employees to use transit to work. And that's something that would be an easier get, depending on how much they want. But, you know, I definitely like the idea. I think we have a bus station right in front of the library, relatively close, and it makes sense to us, to me. I like public transit, so encouraging the use, I think, would be great.
But just something to add, because I'm not sure if we're talking about the North County Transit District or down in San Diego, because I think they're two different entities. But at least for the up here in North County, unless things have changed in the last couple of months, all children 18 and under will be riding. They have free bus passes.
Okay.
So if we did do that concept, I think it would only apply for adults.
Yeah.
So again, because I think you still can purchase the child tickets. I mean, if you don't know about it, you'll be buying it when you can get it for free.
So what is it about the North County Transit?
The North County Transit District, that's what operates here in Escondido.
Okay.
Yeah, because the MTS, I believe, is San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some of the trains, I feel like.
The Sprinters?
The Sprinter. I'm not sure if that's included in the youth one, because the card, if the youth get a physical card, it's called a Pronto card. So if you look into that, you Google that, more information will come up on what you can and can't use it for. But they're also really encouraging that because most people have cell phones to just do the web-based version so that they don't have to carry around a physical card.
If I may add just one thing, one of our council members, Joe Garcia, sits on the board of directors for North County Transit District, so if this is something you would be interested in exploring, I'd recommend connecting with him, and I'm happy to facilitate that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the strategic plan?
I guess I'm just wondering, do we have any plans as we upgrade our building to include environmental friendly decisions?
The city would be the best to speak to
Yeah.
that. Right now, it's still very early in the process, so we can remind them, and I would say the board is fully encouraged to provide that input. But right now, it's very early. I can only say, I can say for sure that the majority of it is focused on the infrastructure, so that's HVAC, and there might be some kind of green tie-ins there and energy-saving measures. But I'm not quite sure if it's necessarily delineated as part of the current bids or requests.
Okay.
Am I in the contact to her in the grant?
Oh.
Yeah. We should probably ask Jennifer. But we could potentially explore like a heat pump versus an AC system.
Yeah, I think asking Jennifer would be a great start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the library director's report.
All right, I won't go into everything because I'm sure you've had time to read, but I do want to recognize that on December 1st, Dan Wood was promoted to assistant library director from principal librarian. So we recognize his dedication. He, of course, was interim director during a few months when Escondido Library did not have either a library director or an assistant library director. In addition, he had many years of experience working programs, children's, and then libraries. So he was an easy fit and perfect candidate for the job. So we were happy to promote him. So, and I know some of you already expressed congratulations, and I'm very happy to hear that from you.
Thank you. I do have a question. Are we planning to backfill his position?
Currently, we're assessing whether we're going to use that position for some reconfiguring of the rest of the staff. So the answer is most likely no. But it's kind of dependent on what we can get done and approved through my supervisors. But the goal in my mind is to use the funding from that position to help raise some of our librarians to more supervisory roles, to help distribute the supervision of all the departments a little bit more equitably, rather than concentrating just on a couple people, and to give a little bit more ownership to those librarians as professional librarians to supervise those areas that we give them, in addition to also hopefully adding more supervisory roles in our customer services department, to focus more on circulation duties, and also to have somebody dedicated at a professional level in the pioneer room. So those are top level kind of where we're aiming to go, using the funds from that position. But then again, if not all of that goes through, then it might mean something else. But that's kind of where we're aiming. Hopefully in January we'll have a better picture, which is when our LSNS budget started. So I'll have hopefully better answers for you in the next meeting or the one after. For the rest of my report, I also mentioned that through our ESL grant, we've been able to create a new part-time literacy associate position dedicated specifically to ESL, so English as a second language, targeting some of our families and adult learners in support of our already existing very successful family and adult programs in the literacy department. Beyond that, we applied to it's not really a grant, but a opportunity for Parks and Flora backpacks through the state of California Library. We already had some backpacks that are similar through another grant, but this one is kind of more of a grown-up version. So we'll have a little bit more of wildlife guides, binoculars, tools for identifying wildlife, flora, fauna, to get people really excited to go visit our parks. They'll be able to check those out at the library, in addition to the already existing parks passes and museum passes that we offer. So we're excited about that. That should be coming in a couple months. We'll have the backpacks. And since we already have the workflow for prior backpacks, it shouldn't take too long to get those up and running. And then we've done little changes in revitalizing the library space. If you visit the library, we started filling in gaps in our shelves with kind of fun displays. You'll see them right now mostly in the DVD and new book sections, where we're just trying to liven up the space, making it a little bit more inviting without doing any major structural changes, since we expect a lot of that will be changed during the renovation in a year or so. But we're trying to make the space more inviting, improve signage to know where things are, and right now I'm also looking at maybe moving some collections to kind of encourage discovery while you're browsing and not make those stacks seem so imposing. As far as highlights for the month, usual highlights from adults. Health meditation has been very popular, and of course the concerts continue to be very popular and well attended each Saturday and the second Saturday. Last one was opera, and they had fun there. I happened to attend the Afghan culture event, which we can see some photos of here in the report. 64 people attended. It was a nice response. You can see in the background of the images, we had art on display from a local Afghani artist, reflecting on themes from Afghanistan and their experience both in the country and traveling over here to the States and the feelings they felt. We also had traditional music, which you see pictured. There should be a video either on the website or somewhere, if not now, soon, of this event and all the events in the Cultural Fair series that were funded by the state grant. Pioneer Room continues to expand its collections. Recently, they debuted a collection of old recipes, cookbook recipes. So if you go onto Content DM, our website, you'll see a variety of old-timey recipes from locals, going back. Some of them are cutouts from magazines and other things from the time, but some of them are typed up, grandma's recipe carvings of how they used to cook. And some of those are fun to look at. Youth services, as you mentioned, we had a partnership with In and Out, the In and Out Cover to Cover Book Club. That concluded on Saturday, November 18th, with a total of 380 participants in the program. We distributed almost 600 coupons, which were redeemable for a hamburger or cheeseburger at one of the very many In and Outs in the area. So it's, again, a way of encouraging kids to read, especially outside of the summer, continue that interest in reading by incentivizing it even with a cheeseburger or something similar. And I'll mention that right now we're working on our winter reading challenge that'll be beginning in mid-January. So that's one of our strategic goals, is to have more than just one reading challenge, which is just a summer reading challenge. We're moving on to having something also in the winter, starting this time in January. Next year we'll probably try to push it back so it coincides with the school year, but the calendars. But this year it's our first time, so we're a little behind as far as getting the marketing all set up and getting the system set up so we can actually track their reading and then report on that. And of course, our Inclusive Art Club. These are some pictures from that event. Just an example of the very popular types of story times that we have. In this case, it was all about Thanksgiving that week. But you can see all our story times continue to be very popular for parents and kids. We're getting them all the time. This one was one of the smaller ones, where we get story times that have 60 people plus. So we really fill out the Trentine room with really happy kids and families. And that's it for my report. Any questions about what we covered or anything in general about what happened in the months of October and November?
Not specifically on what you covered, but kind of going off of the summer reading challenge. I don't recall if you were in your position yet. You likely weren't. We had talked about looking into the summer reading challenge and the interface where families can sign up to track books. So I'm not sure, right? 'Cause I would guess that this would require a lot of legwork before the actual summer reading challenge, which I believe is our biggest.
Yes.
Just because, I'm fairly tech savvy, but having to log into get the challenges on mobile phone is not very user friendly. So I don't know if there's a new program that we can use, or what interface is used kind of in the back end. And then secondly to that, kind of for me, kind of raised the question of, I don't think the library has an app, does it?
We do not have an app. The website is typically mobile ready or mobile adaptive. And the new website that the city is transitioning to should be, if it's on our website, which I believe it is, it should be more mobile adaptive. We can look into an app. What we've seen is that a lot of people are using, as long as the website is mobile adaptive and properly set up, then it should work very similar to an app regardless.
If it's,
That's a big if, of course. But that's something that I definitely have my eyes on, and making sure that it will work the way we want it to. If not, we can always force it to work the way we want it to. Beyond that, the summer reading portal, I haven't used it yet, so I can't speak directly to how adaptable it is. I suspect that it's older and probably isn't mobile ready or mobile friendly.
Yeah, even just aside from the mobile friendly, I think it's just, at least for me, I found it not very intuitive and difficult to navigate, right? And I only have one child, right? So I would sign up for the adult challenge for myself and then for my son. And sometimes it was not intuitive to switch from one to the other and kind of track everything. So I think just the way that it's set up. So I would invite you to, try to log on and kind of create one. And the interface for sure is very
Older.
outdated. Yep.
Based upon what I just heard, so the city is switching to a new website,
Yes,
and then the library's website is a subset of that?
correct.
Okay, and we have a Polaris interface now.
Yes.
Is that going to be an issue?
No, the transition is only affecting the Polaris is its own separate
Mhm.
web page essentially, and that's not being changed. It's just the other side, the current escondido.library.org pages will just become part of escondido.gov or what have you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll mention that I'm involved, myself and staff are involved in the whole process of the transition, at least on our side as a department. So we're making sure that the new page reflects and is a better version of what we currently have.
Quick question, this might be part of next month's report, but I saw online that there was COVID take-home tests or kits. How's that distribution going? Are there any left for the public?
Great question. We just started this Monday, and it was a soft launch. We just did those few social media posts. We don't have that many. We didn't anticipate a huge amount, and we were also limited by how much the state's health department would send to us. We received around 400 kits. I don't have the numbers right now for how much have been gone out, but I still see several boxes, big boxes of delivery. So I would expect that if we get through them, that'd be great. But yes, we do have right now, it's 1 kit per person, and it's each of the little cell phone kits has 2 kits inside. And yeah, we're providing them for free right now on the first floor information desk. But if you happen to be upstairs, there's also some supply up there on the second floor for the kids.
Is it just for kids?
It's for all ages.
Okay, thank you.
If you were ever to run out, I believe all of the schools should have some as well. So if you ever run out, you can direct them back to the schools.
That's going to be it. Now, our goal was mainly just to provide something, especially right now during the holiday season, and encourage people to, if they're in the library, to take one and be safe.
Okay, great, thank you, We'll move on to the trustee library use report. And I'd like to just give a quick update. On November 29th, Reno and I and Aspen Hill, who's the customer service manager for the library, gave Mayor White a tour of the library. And that went really well. I think we've spent a couple hours with him, and Reno did a good job of highlighting the areas of improvement, showing him around the library. Reno shared his ideas and plans for the future, and really gave the mayor a lot of information of the library offerings like Hoopla, LinkedIn, literacy services, and we covered various partnerships that we have with like the Art Council, CCA, the Rangers, Friends of the Library. And then we ended in the Pioneer Room, which I think he was very impressed with. And then we talked about the Pioneer Room needs. So Reno did a great job of highlighting all that is going on in the library and what's to come in the future. So thank you, Reno, for taking that time. And I think that it was a great visit. I think the mayor felt confident in the processes the library has established and has confidence in the board for any issues that may come up from the public. So I think that overall it was a really great meeting.
One quick question. Have Maribel and Francis been given a presentation on our weeding process?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not urgent, but when when I run across one of the library naysayers, which isn't often anymore, but it still happens, it's either weeding or collection. Okay, that's and it's good to well, I just say next time you can't find a book, give me the name and the author of the book, okay, and I'll go see, because basically I don't believe them. So anyway.
Thank
Yeah.
you, John, for reminding me, because one of the topics that we discussed during the tour was the collection development policy. And we covered that with the mayor and the process if anyone had any challenges from the community. And Reno had some great suggestions on how we can improve that policy. Would you just share what you shared with me with the board on your thoughts on that policy?
I'll say, in general, the war policy is very solid, very strong, very comprehensive. The only things I would recommend you consider, if they're not already included somewhere, is one, ensuring that it's very clear that only library card holders can challenge. It's to give them a reason and a commitment to be in the community and using the library, and to avoid outside agents just manipulating the process for their own political gain. As I've seen a lot of libraries switch to making sure that, you know, we want to honor our community members and our library card holders' opinions and views for the library, but we also want to make sure that we're not being inundated by outside agents that have no stakes in either the community or the library. So making it clear that you have to be a library card holder to challenge materials, and then also including some sort of limit to how often a particular title can be challenged. Because I've seen in other systems that don't have that, the possibility of, okay, it's been challenged once and somebody else comes in and challenges it again, and it just ties up the process of both library staff and eventually the board once it reaches that stage.
Okay, didn't we approve that they couldn't challenge something more than once in a 12-year month period? Yeah, 12. That was like a year and a half ago or something, a year ago. But the other idea sounds really good. I don't know if, I can't remember if ours covers that they have to be a card holder. That sounds like a real good ad.
How does that get added? How can you add the library card holder?
We'll have to propose a change to the policies, I believe, and put it on the agenda, if that's correct.
Yes.
In reference to those policies, Reno, that you have seen, not that I'm trying to make this more of a complicated process, but is there an additional addendum to that of length of card holders, right? Because I could go create the library card today and challenge a card today.
I don't know off the top of my head how frequent it is, or as far as like how many libraries have set time limits. From my understanding, most of them are just fairly basic, that we just want you to have a library card, but it would really have to be the board's decision if you want to include a set amount of time. I would caution that, you know, the main thing we want is to make sure that they're at least local and can get a card, because that's usually enough of a barrier for people who are outside, especially like even in the state. Because you can put our challenge form is online, so really anyone from anywhere can put in a request for challenge reconsideration. So making sure that there is a library card associated, which it might be, but it might not be worded in our policy. Because it doesn't, we do have a space for Escondido Public Library card number, and it says must be a resident of San Diego County. But I'm not sure if that's reflected beyond the form and it is actually in the policy. I can double check for us, but it's something to keep in mind as far as. Okay, we got 6 for, and John will not be reviewed again for 12 months, and we can keep that as 12 months if we think that's still reasonable. Let's see. The closest part I remember seeing as far as it would be here, it just says library patrons, and library patrons can be a little bit vague. So we might want to define what we consider a library patron in this instance. But beyond that, as we saw, the 12 months is already there. We can always change that, but I think making sure that they at least have a library card would be my first recommendation.
Okay, so do we provide the language, or do you?
I'm sure I can provide, but you still have to approve.
Okay,
Yeah, I would just place on the next agenda, but, you know, given the language, you can prove it.
sounds good.
Okay. And then, of course, just like with your bylaw amendment, you
Mhm.
can decide to change it in the moment, as long as we come up with something.
Thank you, Reno.
So, sorry.
Okay.
Do we have to vote to put it on the agenda? No, okay.
So,
All right, so finishing up, our last meeting was November 9th, and it was a really good meeting. It ran kind of long. And then I drove out to, I don't know which casino it was, but it took me like 30 to 40 minutes to get out there for a Chamber of Commerce mixer. And that was a real good time. And the next day I caught COVID. So I don't really have anything to report.
Okay, this last month just kind of flew by. So I was able to take my little one up to the children's area again. And I love the Christmas tree that they put up. I was definitely running after my kid every time I tried to go near it and pull the ornaments. But yeah, but I do want to give a shout out to the library staff that were up there. My little one just kept going up to them and demanding a handshake. And they indulged him, and he was just running around having the time of his life. And they definitely took the time to engage my little one. So I just want to give props to the library staff who do more than just handle the books.
Okay, great. Getting back to that discussion and potentially changing our policy on challenging books. One of the things I noticed is that a lot of the books that are being challenged have been around for a decade or more. So it might be worthwhile to think through, if we want to limit to what can be challenged from a time perspective. Just because it's very strange to me. I know that we had received a public comment, and I decided to start reading all of the books that this individual was upset about. And one, I didn't find anything that I felt was out of the ordinary, to be perfectly honest. And another thing I found is that I think 2 of the books on the list were things that had been in our library or on the market for 20 plus years. So it was just very strange to me. I do know that it's a question that we ask in our challenge form, which is wonderful. But that might be something we want to consider, and I'll be prepared to talk to it at the next meeting. But for what I did this last month was I had some time on my hands, which I don't usually have. So I decided to go into the library and get a bunch of travel books, specifically for Europe. So I could plan my honeymoon that I didn't get to take in 2020 because of COVID. So I spent 2 weekends doing that. We're going to go from Munich to Prague to Berlin, and then over to Cologne in Germany, all because I was able to access the travel books. So it was really helpful.
I'll keep mine brief, but I had a chance to meet with Reno a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the library, and that was nice. So thank you for taking that time. And then I was also at a holiday party last week, and Escondido resident spoke very highly of the library and the staff. So I just wanted to pass that feedback on.